Good evening, everyone. The purpose of this meeting is to conduct the business of the Gettysburg Area School District. Board of Directors meetings and committee meetings are open to the public, but are not public meetings. All school district residents who wish to make public comment should sign in prior to the start of the meeting and request to speak during citizens' participation. Public comment is welcome and all issues will be referred to the appropriate board, committee, or administrator. Comments will be summarized in the official board minutes, which will be available by contacting the business office. Please take a moment to silence all your electronic devices. Everybody is present with the exception of Mr. Morris, and he's been excused this evening. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, welcome, everyone. I'm assuming we do not have citizens participate. Wow, we got lucky this evening. I'm just kidding. That brings us right to routine approvals. I've asked to separate, or I've been requested to separate one 5-point.
Mr. President, we have a notice and communication for an update for the comp plan before you jump into that real quick.
We never do, but go ahead.
Maybe that's my fault. Just wanted to give the board a quick update on the comprehensive plan. After about a 5-month process, we completed the next 3-year comprehensive plan. It is posted on the district's website. Tomorrow, at some point during the day tomorrow, we'll send out communication to all district families, letting them know that's there. I'm also sending out a short Google form to elicit some feedback from the community on the plan. And then the goal will be to present it as an information item to the board at the March 3rd board meeting. So that's just a quick update on where we are with the plan right now.
Thank you, Jeff. Any questions?
Not a question, but a comment. Alice and I represented the school board as part of the comprehensive planning committee, and we did have a very representative group from the community, in my opinion. And I would like to just publicly thank Dr. Matzer, and I think Alice would agree with me. Many districts will hire an outside group, like from the Lincoln Intermediate Unit or some other outside provider, to facilitate that process. Dr. Matzer had the courage to take that upon himself and lead the entire session. I think we had 6, 7, 8 sessions that went several hours, and there was a fair amount of investment and work involved. And in the end, I think as a result of his efforts and the committee, which was very committed in my opinion, I think we have a really good comprehensive plan for the next few years. And I think Alice will agree with me with that. So I just wanted to publicly thank Dr. Matzer for the job he did in facilitating that whole process, and thank all the community members and the staff that gave a lot of time invested in this to make, I think, a really good plan.
Thank you.
Yes, can confirm.
Thank you.
Thank you. We now go to routine approvals. Again, we had a request to separate, so we're going to do 5.1 through 5.4. 5.1, the agenda. 5.2, the regular board minutes, January 21st, 2025. 5.3, approve E&B transportation drivers. 5.4 is the 25-26 York Adams Academy budget. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Question on the motion on the floor? Roll call. Michelle?
Yes.
Cindy?
Yes.
Alice?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Al?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Jeremy?
Yes.
And I vote yes. That brings us to 5.5, which is the HR, Human Resources recommendation. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Question on the motion? Roll call. Jeremy?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Al?
Yes.
Mike?
No.
Alice?
Yes.
Cindy?
No.
Michelle?
No.
I vote yes. Items for board action, 6.1.
Before we move on, just wanted to welcome Christine Biggins to the administrative team. Hope that you enjoy the new role, and hope that you're able to leverage the relationships you've built at the high school with assisting and leading the building. But congratulations.
Items for board action, 6.1, tax collector comprehension resolution. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Question? Roll call. Michelle?
Yes.
Cindy?
Yes.
Alice?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Al?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Jeremy?
Yes.
And I vote yes. 6.2 is the LIU general operating budget for 2025-2026. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call. I'm sorry, question?
Not a question, but a comment. At some point, Dr. Perrin or Dr. Matzer, like I've said before, with all the restructuring that's happening at the IU and the school districts, I think taking on a fair amount more responsibility regarding bringing back some of our students, some of our, frankly, I'll go ahead and say it, our high-maintenance students. It would be good to have a presentation at some point just to educate the board so that we're aware and we can be proactive of some of the things that we can expect down the road. Thank you.
Anything additional? Roll call. Jeremy?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Al?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Alice?
Yes.
Cindy?
No.
Michelle?
No.
And I vote yes. .3 2025-26 district academic calendar. May I have a motion, please?
So moved. Second.
Question?
Can I ask a question?
Yes. You may have the floor.
Is there a better way to do professional development so that we're not taking a day from every month? Is that possible at all? Because there's some months where, you got classes going boom, 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 and then boom. we skip a
The
day.
best way to do professional development is as often as you can. Generally, with previous district calendars, you were pretty much stuck to maybe 4 or 5 days a school year, and they might have been front loaded. You might have had 3 in the fall, like 2 in the spring. So what the research has found is that the more that you can do it on an ongoing basis, the more you can keep up with ongoing initiatives. So, we've really moved this direction so that it can be meaningful for the teachers and can have the biggest impact on kind of instructional toolbox for our teachers because they deliver the instruction to our students.
Any additional comments or questions? Roll call. Jeremy?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Al?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Alice?
Yes.
Cindy?
Yes.
Michelle?
No?
And I vote yes. 6.4, 610, purchase subject to bid and quotation. This is in reference to policy 610. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Question? Roll call. Jeremy?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Al?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Alice?
Yes.
Cindy?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
And I vote yes. That brings us to our informational items. The first one is 7.1, the charter school renewal. Jason?
Yeah, sure. Similar to what the process we went through last spring with Vita, Montessori had requested a 5-year renewal of their charter. Their current charter expires June 29th of this year, so the next 5 years would begin June 30th through through 2030. And so we followed the same exact process, and that was laid out in the document that was attached to the board agenda, laid out their request, our request for information based on their request. We did a visit in December and then follow-up conversations and requests for information. So what there is a summary of the visit. It's, Montessori is over on Coleman Road. They're currently on land that they own. And it'd be a 5-year renewal of their charter. And if there is any information that's not in the document that the board would like when they consider a vote on February 18th, just send me a note and we'll make sure that we share that information that evening.
This is
Alice.
also a time for questions, correct?
Yep, your floor's open. Go ahead.
Okay. I have quite a few based off of what I'm looking at. I feel like it may be something that can be answered, or it may be something that we need to seek more information on. But when I'm looking at the overview, I see, at least for the finance section, some recommendations, which I'm not sure if this was broken down by like the people, like maybe that was Melinda's
different
thing.
people did certain aspects of the review. So
Okay.
I think that the title page lists, like Belinda did finance.
Morgan did HR.
Yeah, and Morgan did
Okay.
HR. Yeah.
So I'll direct my questions that way then. In terms of having recommendations listed there, I guess I'm wondering kind of what are the purpose of recommendations? Like, how do those proceed from here until when we're voting on it? It's something that I know was presented to Montessori administration, I imagine, and I'm wondering if that is like actionable items we're asking of them, or if it's just simply a recommendation.
Globally speaking, so maybe not specific to
Yeah.
but say in all areas, recommendations are either simply to align with best practices or to align more closely with charter school law.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then my other questions are more along the lines of looking at the human resources certification review. Left me concerned, to put it mildly, just that there's, a listing there of a fair number of uncredentialed individuals for the role that they fill, or lapses in professional development hours by teachers as well as administrators in terms of what's required. Appears to be a general lack of documentation that is necessary to continue those staying up to date, and has either resulted in or is partially to result in being lower than the percentage of credentialed teachers that are required by charter school law.
That is correct.
Okay, that's a lot. I also see that you listed that there's about 6 teachers for a couple of different reasons who have certificates validity in question. And my question that I wasn't sure of is are those the same 6 as part of the 9 who are missing credentials, or are they different?
It can vary. So
Okay.
validity and certification.
Right. Different
active
reasoning.
Certifications are 2 separate things in the eyes of PDE.
Right.
So those are a little bit of overlap between those.
But not
and then-
necessarily all.
Correct.
Okay, so when I'm looking at that, just to math it out a little bit, 29 certified staff, including administration, 20 of whom right now are appropriately certified, which is 68.97% instead of the 75 required by charter school law. So in order to meet the 75, that requires 22, which is an additional 2 people. And yet there are a few people whose certification credentials are potentially not valid.
Correct.
Okay.
And there are simple steps that they
Sure.
can take to rectify that. They would just need to put forth the correct documentation to PDE and follow those steps. So a lot of those individuals that you see on there could be fixed relatively quickly,
Right.
as long as they follow the correct process for that.
And we'll share that with them.
Okay.
In the recommendations.
Alice, Alice, to follow up there, back to your answer, Jason, we're going to be asked to vote on this.
Correct, yeah.
So when Alice asked the question, Jason responded, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, that we'll make recommendations or in line. So the question is it a suggestion that they can thumb their nose at us, and then we have to vote one way or the other? Or is it a mandate? Because I'm not comfortable voting in an approval part of this if they're not in line with what we have to do. If they're in violation of the charter, if we vote yes, then we're condoning that action.
I think if they're committed to getting those well, it's 2 people, certified or whatever. I've never held up a renewal in the 15 that I've done, but it's up to the
Right,
board.
right, and I'm not suggesting we hold it up, but it'd be real interesting. I probably don't want to know the answer. How long have they been out of certification? Or were they never in certification, and then we're going to take their word that they'll get it 2 months from now better, and we vote okay?
Based on the documentation that was provided, I can't say for how long it has been going. I mean, some of these individuals were just recently hired when I inquired
Sure.
a little bit more, so they're working on the process, but I can't answer how long.
Who's their direct line of communication from this district to them? Who's handling?
Any one of our administrators with their director. My suggestion would simply be that we contact the director tomorrow and say, please have 2 more people certified by the next board meeting so we can approve your charter.
That would be I think I would go along with your suggestion.
Yeah.
However you want to do it.
I would appreciate, I'll finish what I'm saying, and I see Al wants to say something too. I wanted to make sure that I was correct in reading that, just because that does kind of raise a red flag for me, but I also know the process can continue beyond today. I guess my ask as a board member would be that we receive some update on the progress towards that, or ideally, if it is an easy step, that is something that is taken on their end.
How about if we say we won't put it on the agenda for action until we've confirmed
That sounds great.
that's been taken care of?
You can put it on, but I can promise you where the board's going to vote. So that's probably the best course.
No problem. I'm like
o-
electricity, path of least resistance.
Thank you. The only other question that I was just curious about, based on, the mission of the charter. So brick and mortar charters provide some additional, method of teaching or programming that isn't provided by our brick and mortar public schools in kind of a more niche area. And this one, that philosophy is Montessori. So that is a teaching philosophy that includes certification of its own, albeit not required necessarily by the state. It is a part of their mission that states that they are Montessori trained and PA certified teachers. So I would be curious to find out if that information is available from them as well, kind of how they provide that training for teachers, whether through certifying it or doing some sort of course there, or if there's other kinds of ways that they help provide Montessori training to teachers.
We can provide that prior to a vote.
That would be great. Thank you so much.
Al?
Yep, thank you. Morgan, how many of the Gettysburg School District instructional staff are considered highly qualified by the Department of Education?
We have over 95% of our staff.
I was
in
gonna
that
say-
vote. We do not have many on, PDE does not consider emergency certified teachers qualified.
Okay.
We have very, very few.
And I anticipated that was the answer. We're very close to 100%. These charter schools do not have, it's not an even playing field. And compliance with highly qualified teachers is just one of many areas where there are compromised standards. I know I keep beating this issue to death, and I have a little bit in my legislative report later on, but it truly is an uneven playing field. I do believe that the Montessori philosophy is different than the public education philosophy, and again, I'm supportive overall. I don't know a whole lot of detail about this specific school, but there is an uneven playing field there, and I just think it's important for the public to know that Gettysburg School District is held to a much higher standard, not just in highly qualified teachers, but in many other areas that we have to be in compliance with, that charter schools, because of the people in Harrisburg being very liberal and friendly to them regarding school choice. But I really think it's unfair to the vast majority of public schools. Thank you.
Any additional comments, Jeremy?
Yeah. One thing that's a little alarming to me is that we don't have one go-to person for this, or one person just looking after this. That's my understanding. You guys said like it could be any one of the administrators. So
We collectively do it. I arrived here in 17. The district didn't have a process for renewing their charters. So actually, I brought a process with me. So at least since 2017, with all the renewals we've done, we have followed a pretty comprehensive process, which hadn't been done prior. It just got voted on every 5 years without a whole lot of review.
Yeah.
So now we do much more review than was done, say, 10 years ago.
No, and I appreciate that. My thing is, like, we should have a go-to person that's relaying information back and forth. That way they're not getting it from a couple different people, or we have a few. That way it's just, I think it's a lot easier and it's a lot cleaner. I mean, it's just a suggestion to the administration that, whether it's Morgan or whoever, if they have one direct line, and then that way we don't have to worry about things getting crossed and people misunderstandings. Because, like, what we're talking about right now, and like what Kenny was saying, if we got to vote on this, like, they need to have it together. Like, I'm not voting on something where they don't have it together. And I don't want somebody telling me, oh, well, we're working on it, because that's not good enough. Like, if we're going to vote on it, like, we need to make sure they have it together. And I'd like somebody, one person from this administration, to be able to give me the information that says, yes, this is what they're doing, and they will have it by this time, or they're going to have it by the time we vote. So.
Yep, that's what we'll do.
No additional brings us to 7.2, the draft capital improvement program 5-year plan, fiscal year 25, 26, 29 to 30. I'm assuming you're going to take the floor?
Yes.
Alrighty.
Yes, I will. Thanks, Kenny.
You're welcome.
So as we typically do every year, about this time, I put forth, or Facilities Department puts forth the 5-year capital improvement plan. And I can direct everybody's attention up to the screen up there. This is the same handout that the Board of Directors has. This is about 27 pages long, so I'm not going to go through and read every page to everyone here tonight. But in general, what we do is we survey both building staff, administration, as well as my staff of about 45 or 50 folks to determine what the needs are most immediate the next year, the next plan year, that is, which would be 25, 26 as part of this plan. And then we develop a plan for 4 years after that. And then we also look at a 10-year look ahead as well, which typically involve facility improvement projects, which are the larger projects, generally $2 million and above, similar to the HVAC projects that we have just completed over at James Getty, and we're going to complete this summer at Lincoln Elementary. And then we also have kind of a look in further ahead than that, or items for discussion, if you will, that we, kind of put things on a list so they're not forgotten about and can be discussed throughout the year, or certainly once or twice a year once this plan comes up. So with that said, that's kind of the gist of what this plan is all about. So I will jump into the particulars, and there's obviously some, call it some gingerbread, some plan processes of how we get from point A to point Z, if you will. The introduction with the 5-year, the 10-year, the looking ahead, as I just mentioned. And then the 2 spreadsheets three spreadsheets are really where the title of the project, proposed project, and the associated dollar value come in. This first sheet here and the second sheet is the 5-year plan, and the third spreadsheet is the looking ahead, as well as the 10-year plan that I mentioned. Beyond this, get into, a little more detail with each individual project proposed for next year. So typically what we do is we have 3 general funds, if you will. One is, and they're all district-wide, first being building envelope, which would include funding to make repairs to anything, we'll call it outside the building, windows, facade, roofing, things of that nature. We have about a little over 800,000 square feet throughout the district. So the $37,000 price tag might seem a little high at first, but taking into consideration the area that we cover. It's actually pretty low when you figure it out per square foot. So that is our building envelope repair fund. Then we have a building finish repair and replace fund, and that could be, call it anything inside. It could be painting, drywall repair, flooring, ceiling tile, anything of that nature. Kind of architectural, if you will. That one's about $34,000. And then we get into safety and security upgrades, which certainly since I got here three and a half years ago, the sense of urgency with making necessary improvements relative to safety and security have definitely been pushed to the forefront.
So we're further in the slides, right?
What's that? Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no worries.
These are my slides here, sorry.
I was just checking myself, to be honest, but yeah, that's me.
I apologize. So we have about 41,000 for safety and security. And again, those are just really to take care of things as they come up. And relative to safety and security, certainly work with the chief of police with anything that he sees as necessary, as well as building administrators. We do a lot of camera work, security camera work, access control with card readers and so forth, changing out door hardware, upgrading door hardware, repairing door hardware. There's quite a bit of abuse that use, not necessarily abuse, but use that happens with door hardware, considering the environment we're in. So those are the first three line items that were on the spreadsheet. Getting into a little more detailed items, we're hitting the high school hard this year, and that wasn't something that was necessarily pre-planned for years. It just, we kind of shuffle the deck with the list of items that we have on a yearly basis based upon priority. So at the high school, we're planning on a pretty extensive asphalt repair, seal coat, and striping project. Nothing other than just seal coat, from what I understand based upon records, has been done since it was built in 1998. So it is certainly due. And I try to throw a couple of pictures in here just to give people an idea of what we're looking at. But we have about $110,000 earmarked for that. So we should be able to capture a fair amount of the parking surface out there. It'll be curb repair, gutter repair, inlet repair, just to prevent future water infiltration and degradation of the asphalt areas. Next item, equipment replacement and renewal for the gym. We have 18 basketball hoops that retract up into the ceiling. They're also adjustable for elevation based upon age group and so forth. That will be the majority of the cost for this line item. And this one's pretty hefty. It's $186,000. Then there is also a wrestling mat hoist, indoor batting cage, and some other miscellaneous equipment that we will capture with this line item as well. It'll be a combination of replacement and refurbishment. Once we get into design, we'll hone in on the budget, and obviously we'll try to bring it in as far below budget as we can. But considering 18 basketball hoops that are attached to structure, it's just not cheap. So next item, we have $12,000, almost $13,000 set aside to put up LED lamps at the soccer field behind the high school. Should be relatively quick and easy compared to some of the other ones. Replacement of domestic hot water heaters at the high school. We just did an HVAC renovation about a year and a half ago, completed about a year and a half ago. New hot water heaters in the central plant actually weren't part of that scope. We picked up hot water heaters for the gym wing, so we weren't storing, so to speak, storing all the water throughout the entire building. So we're looking to upgrade domestic water heaters and actually put in, it's called a plate heat exchanger. It basically captures heat off of the heating hot water system, which is tied into the boilers. So it's a pretty efficient way of heating your domestic hot water. since you're already paying to heat the water that heats your building. So we're going to look into that and give that a try there at the high school. This is kind of delves into a little bit of safety and security, I guess, or more safety. The baseball field, and sorry, this is so small, but actually might be able to do that. So what you're looking at here is the baseball field. This is Adams County Tech, looking to put in more than likely probably a pervious pavement due to stormwater considerations, stormwater management considerations, but an ADA accessible path that we can get people from the paved area or access road or pedestrian walkway at Adams County Tech down to the baseball field for the games. We have about 100,000 in for that one. Switching gears a little bit, but still at the high school, we have a more or less a kind of a glorified homeowner lawnmower that we primarily use for snow removal. It is at least 17 years old, has 3,200 hours on it. So we've gotten our useful life out of that one. We're looking to replace that with another piece of equipment to aid the snow removal process out there at the high school. We have about 31,000 pegged for that one. The high school auditorium. So annually, as part of our that's ANSI requirements is what they are, but we do flame testing of all of the stage curtains at all of our buildings. This one did not pass at the high school, so we have an estimate for, I think it was at 62,000 to get that one replaced. Yeah, I was a little bit of a sticker shock on that one myself. But again, we'll look to get multiple quotes on that, as we always do, to drive that price down as much as we can to get us back in compliance with the stage curtain. The high school, I'm not sure, probably many people probably don't know, but we have a dedicated sewage pump station that the district own, and it's original to the high school construction from '98. We had maintenance and service performed on that this year, and we have some compromised components, control components, electrical components, as well as some piping that are subterranean piping that we're basically at risk right now of some potential failures. So we're looking to get that whole system renovated and also put in an emergency backup generator. Right now it is not on emergency power. Which obviously if we lose power, then we're bringing in a pump truck or putting in a temporary generator to try to keep the system going. So we have about 134,000 budgeted to get that renovated. And the last item, is the greenhouse at the high school. So what we're proposing is to re-roof and re-side with the translucent panels, the greenhouse itself, and do some renovation work to the slab, concrete slab on the inside, to add some trough drains and basically renovate it to get it back to ideal usable condition. I guess they use it to a certain extent at this point, but programming has kind of outgrown what is currently there, which is circa 1998, I want to say. I don't think it was built necessarily right with the high school, but I think it was a few years after, from what I understand. So it has some age, and basically the efficiency for heat gain and light transparency is degraded just with the more or less the film or the breakdown of the UV breakdown of the translucent panels that are currently on it. So one item that's not doesn't have a dedicated slide but is on the spreadsheet is we've been banking some money every year to fund the terrazzo repair at the first level in the high school. So that is to the tune of 27.6. So that is this next year that is proposed. I'm not going to go through year 2 through 5 because I'll be frank with you that it's probably going to shuffle once we reprioritize things as we move on. And if you go through the rest of the plan, just some general information. We have facility profiles in here, which provide general building information for each one of our buildings. PDE capacity, square footage, the year it was built, renovated, approximate replacement costs. So that is on page 19 through 25, I believe. Yep. And then we have some district totals here on the back. So.
And just as a reminder, the 5-year plan that Josh just reviewed that we do every year, that next year's work, such as the work that he just reviewed on the screen, is built into the general fund budget. But even though we bring the 5-year plan for approval every year, each one of those projects ends up being another vote by the board when those individual projects are done. So I just wanted to remind folks that approving the 5-year plan doesn't approve all of those projects to get done like the next day. Each one of those little projects comes back to the board for approval. This just allows us to kind of outline somewhat of a budget. Some of those items will come in under the budgets that are listed. Some will come in over. But on a yearly basis, we try to allocate between $900,000 and $1 million on a yearly basis for upkeep of our facilities. If you keep things up, you tend to deal with less significant expenditures down the road. So the district's always been pretty effective at doing that. So thanks for putting that together.
Josh, I'm going to save myself, hopefully, some public emails that I have to answer. Let me just make sure I'm correct here. The 5-year plan, what you've presented to us, the proposal, is in addition to other projects that the district has already looked at through building and finance, correct? It's comprehensive.
Yes. Yes.
And Jason just eloquently said, because I don't want any misunderstanding, that approving this 5-year capital plan, this board is not voting for all the items that you just went over, and that each of those items would be voted on separately.
That's correct. Actually, this isn't even funded until you pass the budget. And then every project will come forth for information. Facilities and Finance Committee will recommend it for information. That'll be information and action at the board, yes.
I completely understand. I just want to make sure that it was clear in the public, because emails will follow as we get into the budget season, and Mike and I are responsible for answering them, when the reality is that these aren't funded. These are recommendations from you all to us as to what we should be doing or not doing to keep up our property.
That's correct.
Thank you.
I'd just like to give one more thank you for it being so comprehensive, and also the way that you explain it when you do this. I don't have a lot of background in a lot of these things, but you're explaining it in a way that I can understand, and hopefully the community is learning from too. And much thanks for the pictures.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nope, thanks, Josh. I appreciate you bringing this, the 5-year plan to our attention and what we need to do. And also, the taxpayers should be looking at this as a huge thank you too, because it allows us, when it comes to budgeting, it allows us to see what we're really up against in the future, so we can plan accordingly to try and save the dollars that we can and utilize what we have to work with, where we need to. So thank you, and thank the administration for doing that.
I would agree, but just as a side note, all of this will go through building and finance, which is open to the public. So if there's questions and concerns or worry from the public or anybody, they're welcome to attend that meeting as it gets discussed and outlined before our votes. Okay.
And again, Josh, thanks. I know we talk about all this stuff at the Building and Finance Committee meetings, but, I know you do a lot of due diligence and, going out and looking at stuff and making sure, what somebody is asking you for is really needs done, so forth, and bringing that information back to Building and Finance to make sure that we are doing our due diligence. So thanks for your efforts on that.
Any additional?
Can I just
Michelle?
ask a question? Josh, on this 5-year plan for next year, can you tell me like the top 3 things that you're like, nope, we absolutely are getting those 3 things done?
Stage curtain, greenhouse, and I would say probably parking lot would be my top 3, without looking and going down. And then certainly the safety and security money, we need that for sure. So that's my top 4. He asked for 3, there's 4.
Can I ask one other question?
Michelle?
It's not on here,
The floor is yours.
but I had asked you last year, after the musical, I had mentioned about the big white curtain, the big white canvas one that's along the very back wall. Had water damage. Have we ever replaced it or tried to get it cleaned or?
I don't mean to put you on the spot, but it's done, right? Yeah.
Okay, I don't have any kids, so I have no kids in the musical this year,
Yeah,
so I don't know.
we worked together, and Terry McDaniel was instrumental. He's the maintenance supervisor, so he was instrumental in working with really Jeremy's staff to get that done.
Anything additional? If not, I know there's some people who have been waiting through a meeting that I normally don't see for the next informational item. I'm actually wrong. The next informational item is the Lincoln Elementary Commissioning Agent. Thank you, Mike. I was trying to get by. Sorry.
So this is another one of my items that I have on the agenda. So I mentioned earlier when I was, talking about how we put together the 5-year plan, 10-year plan. I mentioned the larger HVAC project we're doing at Lincoln Elementary School that we're going to be finishing up at the end of this coming summer. So it's an HVAC-driven project. Of considerable size. We're getting all new HVAC-related equipment, and the system that we're putting in is starkly different than the existing system that we have currently installed in the building. And typically, in my experience with a larger project like that and complex systems, especially with the building automation system that we employ, typically you would utilize a third-party commissioning agent. So a commissioning agent is a mechanical engineer that they'll provide basically a plan. They'll take your plans and specs, and they'll develop a commissioning plan, which is basically the best way I can describe it is when the Navy builds a battleship, they don't just say, hey, jump on this thing, it's done, go ahead and go out to sea. They put it through 6 to 12 months of commissioning where they put it through its paces, make sure it, turns left, turns right, and does all those really complex things that none of us would really understand. Well, as complicated as a battleship may seem, sometimes I look at our building automation system and I think that maybe it's even more complicated, right? So one would think that, you hire a contractor to build it, and I was just actually talking to the former facilities director earlier, but actually I'll give you credit, Dave. I'm going to take his words, but, you hire an engineer to design it and a contractor to build it, and you would think that, everything is going to be perfect, but it's not, right? So typically what you do is hire a commissioning agent that works directly for the school district, and they put together a commissioning plan to put the building through its paces, the equipment, the building automation system, to make sure that it's functioning at properly and peak efficiency. So let me get this handout pulled up here. Sorry, I forgot I had this. So I went on, full transparency, went online. I didn't come up with all this stuff myself. So there's several bullet points here that obviously I'm not going to sit here and read them to you, but the biggest advantage is a cost savings, right? So at the end of the day, we want a building that works, but we want a building that's going to be cost efficient. So this information here, all of it's from American Society of Mechanical Engineers, which I would consider our construction a new build just because it's all brand new mechanical systems. and lighting as well. So I would consider it new buildings, which you can save anywhere from 4 to 13% on energy. So I took the last 3 years of natural gas and electrical cost for Lincoln Elementary, and at 4% realization of savings, we're about 50,000 over 10 years and 100,000 over 20 years. That's at 4% at the very bare minimum. And I would anticipate that obviously we'd be a little bit above the 4%. I anticipate we'd be somewhere 50, 60,000 to hire a commissioning agent to commission the building. So obviously you can see over 20 years we would realize a payback. But one other thing you need to factor in as well when you look at cost savings, if the building's operating properly, then we're not going to have as many maintenance costs. We're not going to have as many repair costs because it's going to be functioning correctly. It's going to save our folks time and money out of our budget because we're not going to be repairing equipment. So my recommendation is, considering the scope of the project there, that we entertain putting out a request for quote to multiple, probably 3 or 4 commissioning agents, and get their quotes back, which will have a rough framework of what they plan on doing for commissioning. And then at that point, we can decide if we like any of them. And if we do, then we can, put that forth for a vote to contract with the commissioning agent and move forward with that. So to Kenny's point, to further explain what we're doing here, I'm basically trying to garner interest of the board. Would you like my department to go out and issue a request for a quote to get multiple quotes back in to then make a decision, which will be put in front of the board again, make a decision as to whether we're going to contract with one of these commissioning agents or not. So.
Mr. President,
Tim?
sorry, didn't mean to cut you off. I was just going to say, I'd like to move to a vote to get Mr. Reynolds to at least get the bids for that to see what comes back.
Okay, to ask a question?
Well,
Yeah, I have a question too.
okay, so
I think and that's okay if you're gonna, we would make a motion just to do that, and then you'll need to make sure that there's public comment before there's any vote on actually doing that, just so we make sure we.
right, and that's what
Yep,
because
that's
we've
what I
gone down this path before. So Tim, procedurally, moving an informational item to an action item, and the board's done it in the past, but it's a rare occasion. You would make a motion to move the informational item, name the informational item to action. It would have to be second, then it would have to be voted by the majority of the board. Then it would be moved to public comment, and then it would be moved for Josh, or Josh then has the authority by the board to do that. So I'll entertain that motion if you want to make it. If it gets seconded and voted, we'll move forward.
Is there, real quick, before he makes that motion, is there any time criticality that's going to put us on some sort of a timeline?
The solicitation would take about 4 weeks, 2 weeks. I'm just talking out loud here, Mike. 2 weeks to evaluate. So that puts us, middle of March. I mean, I think it could go to next meeting if you'd like, but I wouldn't want to go any further than that.
And Josh, clarification, a commissioning agent, is that synonymous with a project manager or a clerk of the works, or is there something different?
No, a commissioning agent it's a registered mechanical engineer.
And we have no one on our staff that could be paid an extra stipend that would have the skill set and the time and ability to do something like that? We really do need to go outside?
How much is the stipend? No, I'm just kidding. No, we do not have anybody.
Have you seen the coaches?
No, we do not.
I'm impressed if you have a mechanical engineer on your staff.
Procedurally, it probably would make sense for him to revise his motion since it's on the table.
Well,
But there's no second.
I don't know if he wants to make that after Josh said it could go
and
to
I
the
just
next meeting.
wanna
So I'll
make
leave that to
sure.
him.
Yeah.
Tim, before you do that, can I ask a question? Did I hear you say 50 to 60,000 you're thinking is what it's
That-
going to cost?
Yeah, that's what I'm estimating, and that number came from just a square foot cost
No, I understand.
based upon what we paid the
And I think
commissioning
it's a
agent
good
at the high
idea.
school.
I've been in other districts where they've had commissioning done and it seemed to work well. My only question is, you're talking about this coming from the construction bond. Is there did we save money in doing any of this, that we have 50 or 60,000?
The commissioning agent was actually in the original budget for
Okay.
both these jobs, so yes, it's allocated already.
So, okay. I was just going to remain my thing. Go
All right,
ahead.
you know what, I'm going to bring back some order. I'll recognize you, Jeremy.
My question is, if we use a commissioning agent, does that do anything for our insurance? Do we have any savings when it comes out? And Belinda, that might be more of a question for you. As far as showing our due diligence. So if we have a catastrophic failure, but yet we went through this with a commissioning agent, what does that look like? Does that?
Not relative to
Yes.
insurance, in my experience.
It is not relative to insurance.
Okay, I'm just asking.
Yeah.
I'm
No,
just
good
asking a
question.
question.
Tim, you have the floor.
I just changed my motion to if we can put that on the agenda for a vote
Well,
for next.
it'll automatically go. Just for point of order for everybody, if an informational item sits tonight, it automatically goes on the agenda for the next meeting, unless there's some opposition. Okay, anything additional? All righty, then it is your time. And I apologize, I'm not sure who's presenting on behalf of the middle school this evening, but we have a collection of staff from the middle school that are here to present to us a proposal. And as you step up, if somebody's going to talk, if you could introduce yourself, because we are being live streamed and our audience would like to know.
Whenever you want to play it, you know how to probably do it. I don't know if you guys have seen this.
Okay, well, first of all, I just want to thank you guys for your service to the district, and appreciate you guys considering this worthwhile project where we want to honor Mr. Steve Litton for his service at Gettysburg Area Middle School. I think that probably very, very few people realize the impact that Steve had, and I'll keep my comments brief, by the way, and I'm assuming everybody got our letter, which was much more comprehensive and more eloquent than I'll be. But back to the point I was trying to make, I think that unless you were in the building, the public's probably largely unaware of the influence that Steve had on Gettysburg Area Middle School. In fact, I would venture to say that the middle school as you know it now was shaped by him, both the building, the staff, the instruction practices, and also the culture that we have there. And I'll start off with Steve's picture. If you don't know Steve, this was emblematic of him, full of energy, spreading enthusiasm and positivity to both students and staff, parents as well. He served at the middle school for 16 years. I guess basically what I'm doing in addition to this letter is giving you, a voice, of the staff that served under him. I was there the entire time. And I will say that serving his entire tenure under him was both a blessing and a curse. A blessing in that he was a great leader and irreplaceable, but a curse because he was there for so long, and I kind of got the expectation that this is the way that things are, and they're not. Okay, so Steve was exceptional, and we want to recognize his exceptionality. So I'll briefly touch upon a couple of these points and definitely highlight his advocacy for kids. I mean, that was central in everything he did. His visibility was unmatched. He made his way unbelievably every single day to every single classroom in the morning. He served every single lunch duty, took the kids out for recess, and the list goes on and on how he was visible and interacting with students and staff every day, all day long. And I think that that kind of was a reflection on how important the kids were to him. You know, everything for him was run through. I just remember Steve's saying when everything was about how does this help kids? How does this help kids? Over and over and over again. And he was all about the kids. And so that also spilled over academically into his expectations for the kids. Academics were very, very important. Achievement was very important to him, and that showed. He made a big deal out of honor roll. I mean, every single kid that made any type of honor roll, won any single award, was recognized on stage for their achievement. He also started some programs for the kids that were struggling, after school tutoring programs. He wanted to reach all the kids. And in addition, his saying, the best stuff is in the middle, also came back to us teachers because he said, don't forget about the kids in the middle. So he wanted us to hit every single kid and help them to reach their fullest potential. And we can't forget that Steve spearheaded the transition from a junior high to a middle school. And the one comment I'll make about that is I actually taught for a few years at James Geddes Elementary School as a 6th grade teacher. We were made to move to the middle school, like forced. It wasn't anything anybody was happy about that was at the elementary level. And because we all loved it and we thought we had the best there. And so we reluctantly went to the middle school, and I give Steve the credit for making that like the best move of my career. I wouldn't go back and change anything, and that's thanks to him. So you can see a long list of initiatives that he headed up. He always embraced change. He was always on cutting edge. He'd always be bringing programs to the district that I had never heard of. And I was like, what is he doing? And he always nailed it. It always was better for the kids. So in closing, I just wanted to say, you know, that Steve's legacy silently and his impact lives on unrecognized, and what we're hoping is that that we can actually bring recognition to the leader that he was.
Thank you. Mr. Snyder.
Good evening. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Scott Snyder. I am celebrating, I guess, 25 years with Gettysburg School. Same middle school, just from one older building into a newer one. And the first half of my teaching career, I've had the pleasure and privilege of serving under Steve Litton. As far as the plaque that we are looking to purchase in honor of him, we did want to keep it similar to the same style and appearance as the other plaques that are in the building. We are estimating a cost of about $600 to $800 for the plaque, and Mrs. Bryant will be talking to you about the fundraising efforts for that. We've looked into Crown Trophy in Hanover. We've also considered possibly having it being a student project, which would be led by Mr. Lacharowitz at the high school. And if you can picture the middle school, which I'm sure you can, we are proposing the location for the memorial plaque just right outside the gymnasium, right that faces towards the lobby area in the middle school.
Good evening, I'm Karen Bryant. I was hired by Steve back in 1998, and I've been at the middle school ever since. So as far as getting the money and fundraising, we already met with the policy committee and found out that we can fundraise through RevTrack, which is already set up for the district on the district website. And we can open that RevTrack up to the community to former students, former and current staff. And our goal is to raise $800, looking at the higher end of the estimates for the plaque. And with all the support given to Deb Litton in the weeks and months after the accident, we're confident that we can raise that money. And our goal would be to be able to dedicate the gym in late spring or early fall.
And just in conclusion, one of the quotes that Mr. Floyd alluded to was Steve would often say the best stuff is in the middle. And I have had the pleasure and privilege of working in the middle for 25 years. And certainly I could not have done this alone, so I just wanted to say a quick thank you to our group members, Karen Bryant, Tony Floyd, who you heard from, Sherry Yingling, Dana Hassinger, and Dan Zeichel, who could not be here tonight. And also a thank you to Christy Kaywood, who really got the ball rolling when we introduced the idea to her as well. And just a thank you to those who did work with Steve. We see some of those folks there in the back and were touched and impacted by his legacy at the middle school, who are here tonight to support the effort. So thank you very much for your time, and thank you for your
Scott,
consideration.
you may want to
Yes.
stay still for a second.
Sure.
So I'm not entertaining anything other, if you have questions, we'll do questions only. But as a disclaimer, good friend of mine. So we're always transparent here. So the board knows that up front as I move forward. I actually thought, and I expected when you came in here, and I really would have loved to see it, could you go back to the picture of the gymnasium? See where it says gymnasium? Steve Litton Gymnasium. That's what I expected. I know you're doing it through the plaque, and that's awesome. But as a board member, I'm not opposed to that either. You're renaming a gymnasium for him.
I also expected a portrait or something for the people who never met him, to put a face with said name.
So here would be my suggestion. First to the board, I'll entertain a motion, move this from an information item to an action item. 2 reasons. 1, because I believe in it. Second reason is those people sitting out there. They get to hear what we think tonight.
Well, I'll make a motion to.
Yeah, I'll second that.
But before a motion, I just real quickly, Steve and I go way back. We were both middle school principals together for well over a decade. And I would just tell you, Steve Litton was one of the most progressive and most respected middle school principals in the Tri-County area, Adams, York, Franklin County. And besides all the things that you all mentioned, he was just a fantastic human being, taken way too soon. And Deb's, right there with him, and Sharon before that. They maintained a wonderful relationship, even after losing their son tragically and so on. And I support 100% what you're doing because I think it's well deserved. And I like Kenny and others, I think maybe it's something that this is just a beginning of where we end in the end, whatever it ends up being. But I think honoring someone like Steve Litton, he exemplifies what middle school leadership is all about and what it should be. And he was just fantastic in it. And I think you already know this, but he was extremely well respected by 3 different counties of school leaders. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I know I have a motion on the floor, and we can go to a question on that. And I didn't mean to jump the fantastic work and idea you all came up with. I was just trying to suggest that the board may be more than willing that you can expand that beyond a plaque that's sitting there. So if you're going to make a motion, Tim, I would ask you to amend it, and Jeremy second it, that would include that ability for that committee to do what we suggested within that parameters. We're not holding you to that. We're allowing you to use your imagination the best way to respect him.
I'm trying to figure out the best way to amend this. I'd say I'd amend it to allow the middle school teachers and administrators that have brought this idea to expand on how they would like to memorialize Mr. Litton at the gym, whatever that may be.
I'll second that, Tim.
Are there questions on the motion on the floor?
And so this is just the motion, just to have it on the agenda, just so we can have public comment before we actually vote on it. Just remember.
You know what? I got caught up in that.
Yeah, well, so right now, we're just making it an action item, and that's fine. We're
That's
voting to
correct.
make it an action item.
That's correct. The first
Yeah.
vote will be for an action.
Right.
The second vote will be to approve or
substance.
disapprove
Right.
based upon the substance that Tim made.
Right.
So may I have a motion to move this from an information to an action item?
So, second.
I think that's what, I think, we can count that motion
I know, but
as a-
he started to make a motion and expand on that.
Yeah, yeah.
Any questions on the motion on the floor? Roll call. Michelle,
Yes.
Cindy,
Yes.
Alice,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Jeremy,
Yes.
and I vote yes.
Now, public comment. Yeah.
Public comment. For those out there watching, none.
Kenny, can I just say something?
Yes, you
quick?
can, Michelle.
A lot of people don't know, because you just know my youngest child, but I actually have 4 older kids in their 30s now, and they were there when Mr. Litton was there. And I think I will speak for my older kids. He was probably the only administrator in this entire district that my kids actually liked, because the best stuff really was in the middle.
Any additional questions?
Me?
No. I was just looking to see if I was going to get scolded.
You guys ready to vote? You can vote on the substance.
I was trying to get to that a minute ago.
Keep you in line, keep you in line.
Is this okay for me to, like, for our committee, does that mean then that we can raise our goal? Is that what you're suggesting, that we were allowed to go
That-
above the 800?
That is my intentions on that. So, and I'll just give you idea in my head, and I think the same with Kenny, since he's a bit more emotional than I am at the moment. You know, if above the gymnasium, if it was, you know, Steve Litton Memorial Gym or whatever, you know what I mean, with a portrait of him. So, like I said, kids going there now who doesn't know him understand where that come from, instead of just seeing somebody's name they don't have an attachment to, but instead of just a plaque. There's a big wall there, use it.
Yeah, Tony, I don't want to jump all your ideas, and I'm not trying to take them over. What I'm trying to allow or tell you is that I believe, based upon the board's vote here in a minute, we're going to allow you guys to use your creative minds the best way. Roll call. Jeremy,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Alice,
Yes.
Cindy,
Yes.
Michelle.
Yes.
I vote yes. There you go, folks. I'm going to do like I do most of the time here. We still have some stuff going on. I know what you came in for. I'm going to allow you, if you want to exit before we do our last one. It's going to run a little bit. If you want to stay and listen to the last informational item, please feel free. If not, you can be excused.
They're going to miss some wonderful reports, Mr. President.
Yeah, that's why I let him go.
For the first time, you guys could learn something, instead of you teaching all the time.
That brings us, folks, to the last informational item, 7.5, the football cooperative sponsorship with Fairfield. Cody's present here tonight. I'm going to, Cody, if you can stay right where you're at, or you can come to the podium, your choice.
I think I'll stay seated, but if I need to stand, I'm more than happy to do that. I just have a short presentation about a potential co-op in football with Fairfield. Before I get started, just a little bit of background of how I've done co-ops in the past. In my previous position, I was the athletic director at 2 separate school districts, and we are co-opted in every sport we offered except for basketball and volleyball. So I have gone through this process before, kind of merging two programs together. So just before we get started on the actual co-op, just a brief statement about, a little bit about Fairfield. They have 277 students in the high school. They offer 16 varsity sports, which is a lot for a school their size. And the reason for the request for the co-op, they started the varsity football program. They played their first 3 games. They determined that it was unsafe for them to continue. They shut it down for a few weeks, and then I believe they played 3 JV games to end the season. So that's kind of the background of how Fairfield got to this position. So if we were to do a cooperative sponsorship with Fairfield, I would propose that we do a setup where Fairfield would pay their percentage of the total expenses of the football program. So right here is a list, a pretty exhaustive list of things that we would take into consideration when billing Fairfield after the season. Again, they would pay their percentage, and I'll get down to numbers in a second. Again, quite a lot of things would go into that. So just a little bit of the financials. Last year we spent, or this current year, I'm sorry, we spent a little under $82,000 on the football program. So the way we would estimate what Fairfield would pay per player, so I did kind of a calculation. It's a little rough just because of the situation we're in. But this past year, our program had 53 players who were varsity and JV and 26 on the freshman team. And then Fairfield is thinking that they're going to be sending, if we were to do this, 15 players over to us next year. So that'd be a total of 94 players. So once you do the calculations, that would come down to $872 per player. So again, with this model, Fairfield would have paid a little bit over $13,000 for their share of the football program. I can't really say the way the model works. I can't really say what they would pay every single year per player. It would be based off all our expenses and our participation from both Gettysburg and Fairfield. Just a little bit of a breakdown of where we're at number-wise. So again, I have our seniors, juniors, sophomores, freshmen, and 8th graders. The freshmen and 8th graders play on the freshman team, and then a combination of seniors, juniors, and sophomores play varsity and JV. We have several kids who go back and forth. So our total was 79 total players. And then what PIAA ramifications this would have. So every 2 years, we get assigned a male, and not assigned, we put in our numbers and we are calculated a male and female enrollment number. So our male enrollment number is 473. Fairfield's 105. So the way we would calculate our co-op number is we take our 473 and half of 105, which is 52 and a half. We'll round it up to 53, which would give us, if we were to do a co-op, a number of 526. At the bottom of the slide there, that shows what 6A football and 5A football were last year. So our number alone, we were towards the lower end of 5A. If we were to do a co-op, we would be more towards the middle, but in my opinion, I don't think we would be anywhere close to potentially going into 6A. These numbers are calculated every 2 years. We're in the first year of that. So again, the numbers will change based off enrollment, but I feel comfortable in saying I think even if we do the co-op, we will stick in 5A moving forward. And then just how a co-op agreement works. So if we decide to do this, we'd be locked in for year 1 and year 2. In years 3 and 4, both schools would have to agree to ending the co-op if that's something we wanted to do. I did do a little bit more research, and there are a few scenarios where we could get out of the co-op in years 3 and 4, but the PIAA would have to approve that from the standpoint of we'd have to submit a valid reason with evidence why we want to get out of the co-op. But after year 4, either school can decide that they would like to leave the co-op. If both schools are happy, we just stay in the co-op until someone makes a decision to leave. So we could, like I said, if both schools are happy, we would stay in the co-op if we go this route until the end of time. And then the benefits to each district, this is just in my opinion. For Fairfield, it gives their players stability and a place to safely play. And then the benefits to Gettysburg, again, in my opinion, it gives us additional depth of players, and it also, Fairfield would pay for their percentage of the total expenses of the football program. And that's all I had for presentation, so I'll take any questions.
I don't know if it's a question, but for transparency purposes, 3 people from the board have met with Cody just preliminarily before, I guess this was tabled at the last meeting. I missed that. It would be my opinion that those 3, Cody, I think, and I don't want to speak for the entire board, just the individual board members that I've spoken to, and I might turn this over to Mike. If I say it wrong, Mike can step in. I think that it would also benefit us after talking with Fairfield's leadership from the school board perspective that we'd have a sit down with them to make sure that we're on the same page across the board with everything that you showed us. And I'm not saying that you have it wrong, but from a board perspective, maybe it's a good idea if we can make an arrangement where we can meet with them not as a voting body or something that, not in violation of sunshine, but almost like as a committee thing, just to kind of make sure all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. Does that make sense? I'm not sure what the board's feelings are on that. I'm just hearing from a couple different board members that, out of respect for both boards, maybe it's a good idea that we schedule something with them, at least 2 or 3 of our board members, 2 or 3 of theirs.
But that sounds like a plan. And Cody, I really appreciate the information that you shared tonight. That it's helpful to me. And also the fact that you've been through this before. I'm sure there's some unintended consequences that come as a result of some of these things. And, maybe some players taking another player's position that may have been there that had we not co-op. I guess that's always, but I love the fact that it makes it even that much more competitive. I, for one, am in very much support of moving forward with this, and I do think the sooner we make a decision, the better. I don't like leaving Fairfield kids and their parents in limbo. So I certainly support what our president is saying and our subcommittee working with you and the Fairfield team. But I, for one, would love to see us move forward. Thank you.
I would, and I would, on topping on that, I mean, merging any kind of anything, whether it's 2 companies or if it's 2 sport teams, whatever, the first year is always going to have its road bumps, but usually it gets, you get those worked out in the first year and then everything kind of smooths over. But I just didn't want anybody to think that this was just going to be, this was amazing the first year. It's, it's going to have its bumps, but I think it's, at the end of the day, I think it's what's best for the kids involved.
And just going through this, I can tell you that it will have its bumps. We will have growing pains. But I can tell you in my experience of doing this in other sports, at my previous position, year 2 was better than year 1 and year 3 was better than year 2. So again, it's going to be one of those things that issues will come and we'll have to work through them, but that doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It's just growing pains.
Alice.
Yeah, I guess I'm just curious about the process then for moving forward because I hear that people want that. I don't know that I think that's fine. Rather than just, I'm sure they're talking to their athletic director as well, and it would be something that would be presented in front of their board. In terms of finding a way to have a committee that we're kicking this to before then it comes back as an action item, is that something we can do that won't delay it further?
So what I've envisioned, and I took the liberty, 3 of our board members met with Cody, so we had an internal process prior to his coming up publicly tonight as an information item. And the way I see it structured, and this is what I represented to Fairfield's vice president, is that the same 3 members of our board meet with 3 members of their board along with Cody their athletic director, and maybe our assistant superintendent and their assistant superintendent, so that we have not only the board representation, we have the athletic representation, and we have the administration representation for any type, and I don't anticipate conflict, but when you're talking about two different school districts, two different ideologies, and you're merging sports as well as academics or whatever, I just think that we have an equal representation. And then those three members from, and whatever Fairfield does is what they do. But from our perspective, the three members from the Gettysburg board come back and they brief our board on what the proposal is. It becomes an informational item, then an action item. Does that make sense?
So it would be creating a new informational item rather than moving this one forward.
Well, the only way that it would have to be an informational item for this reason, if our three board members are going to represent this board with Fairfield, they need to be able to convey anything that's changed or the final product to the whole board, and the only way they can do that is in a public meeting. So we would have to make it an informational item. I think this can happen quickly. This could be an informational item the very next meeting and go to an action item. I'm not looking at downplaying it, but I'm also have to be mindful that I don't want to have the appearance of a sunshine issue or we're doing something behind the scenes. So it would have to come back as informational. So I would ask the three members on here now, which I believe are Mike, Tim, and Ryan, who's not present. Is that who it is? Mike, Tim, and Ryan get with or meet up with Cody and Jeff, and Cody or Jeff facilitate a meeting with Fairfield as quick as possible. So this is on our agenda as an informational item at our next meeting. Is that possible? Okay. The only side note that I'd have on this, and it wasn't made public here, I don't want to call it a concern, but my only question or where I'm looking at this is, not only is Fairfield's football being affected, but because their football program is being disabled, you have cheerleaders and you have marching band. And I don't want to see them forgotten in the process. So I'm not sure if we've looked at including them in this co-op. But for me, that would be an important component of this, because to me, we're saying, football, come on over. Hey, folks that cheerleaded in the fall, or hey, band members that have worked their entire life within the music department, now all of a sudden don't have a place to display their skills. I don't know if you're there yet, but I'm going to ask you from my perspective, not from a board perspective, that I hope that's being explored.
I would assume, Mr. Hessner, that if we do get that conversation, those would be the kind of things we try to work out while we're there to make, make sure everybody's on the same page, or, if they had something they wanted to do it or they don't want to do it, at least we know up front.
Right. I just want to make sure, because Fairfield had their meeting, Tim, and we had public comment throughout, not so much in the board meeting, but through the paper and stuff, that where were we at in this process? So I don't want them to open the paper tomorrow and say, oh yeah, we're going to co-op, and we forgot about those other two components of that fall sport. Michelle?
I just wanted to say, I don't really necessarily have a problem with football or kids from Fairfield coming to play football or band or cheerleading. I don't really have a problem with that, because we're sitting here and we're supposed to do it in the best interest of kids. I'm not happy that I found out about football, about there being a merger, from the Gettysburg Times.
Oh,
I'm not happy about that.
I didn't know it either.
I knew nothing about it.
Neither did I.
And I do know people on the Fairfield board, and apparently there were conversations that were being had that we were not aware of, and that does not make me happy at all. If there's going to be any talk about that, then board leadership needs to know, and you guys need to relay it to the rest of us somehow, some way. I don't really care, because I don't need any help looking like an idiot. I can really do that all on my own, as can everybody else. But I don't like people asking me, hey, I didn't know football. I didn't know Fairfield was coming to play, because I don't like not having an answer, because I don't like not knowing.
Well, I would say, and I'll speak for myself, not any other board member, was I aware that Fairfield was possibly interested in that? Yes. Did I know to what degree or where it progressed? I did not know. And I did not know until I read the Gettysburg Times that Fairfield actually even took a vote or were even thinking of taking a vote. And I'll be honest with you, it did set it back, but my displeasure with how it rolls out, all that aside, I'm going to evaluate the program the same as you just did.
Well, because we are here, and we're supposed to do what's in the best interest of our students.
Yeah.
And Fairfield students, because they're members of our community too.
I agree. Anything additional? Cody, thank you for the presentation, and we look forward to hearing something so we can move forward with any questions on an informational item at the next meeting. Board committee reports. I know, Al, you have something.
I promise to make it quick. On Tuesday, February 4th, that's tomorrow, Governor Shapiro will present his 25-26 state budget proposal. So, Belinda, I'm sure you're just on the edge of your seat waiting for that. All right. Secondly, believe it or not, and again, I guess we're 25 years into the 21st century, but the Unbound Academic Institute Charter School was turned down by the Department of Education. This is a fully teacherless artificial intelligence cyber charter school. That's the road that we're heading toward progressively in the future here. And in my opinion, it's scary, and it's going to be a horribly substandard education, in addition to what we're already experiencing with cyber charter schools. Isn't it finally time for a flat statewide cyber charter tuition rate based upon actual cost? Pennsylvania taxpayers are charged 500 different tuition rates for the same service provided to the cyber charter students regardless of actual cost, with an additional 500 different rates for special education students. Obviously, we're being grossly overcharged. And then just real quickly, finishing up, regular ed cyber rates range from $7,659 to $28,959. And then, of course, when they magically leave the public school and get assessed, they have some type of disability all of a sudden, and now the special education cyber rates are $18,627. That's the least, all the way through $59,523. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. It's almost criminal, but we need reform. Thank you.
Thank you, Al. Anything else? Mike? No. Program reports. Jason.
Just a couple calendar items. February 13th, next week, early dismissal. As with most early dismissals, secondary 11, elementary noon. And then as a reminder, there's no school for students February 14th and February 17th.
That brings us to the, I'm sorry.
I have one thing from the high school.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Many of you probably saw in the news, but our wrestling team just won a district title for the fourth time in 6 years. Just an incredible accomplishment. So to be in the finals 5 out of the last 6 years and to win back-to-back titles, you know, the kids that we see walk through the halls and work hard in classrooms, and then to put in hour upon hour after class in the weight room, on the mats, on the pavement running, and everything in between is just an incredible accomplishment from the kids, the staff, the community that supports them. So hats off to that team.
Thank you, Jeremy. That brings us to the conclusion of our board meeting. Our next meeting will be February 18th. I would take note of that date because when it's asterisked, I'm believing that's going to be a Tuesday. So may I have a motion to adjourn? Well, I'm sorry, before I adjourn, just for public information and for the people here, the board's going to hold a brief executive session immediately following. So for anybody that's out there, if they could.
For personnel?
Personnel, I'm sorry. I didn't say that, did I? Yeah, that's been my night. So, a quick executive meeting. So February 18th, I have a motion to adjourn. We stand adjourned. Thank you.